Good afternoon. Happy almost spooky season. Well, we're in spooky season, but we're almost at that magical day, one of my favorites. Thank you for joining us for another D&H webinar. I'm joined with a very special guest, Brandy Au from Google. She's our strategic partner manager, and we've gotten to know each other quite a bit over the last few years, and we've seen the Google relationship with D&H just continue to grow and ramp up thanks to all of your support from the partners in both the education and enterprise market. And I think that's a good chunk of what we want to get into today. So without further ado, I turn it over to Brandy, and we're going to cover a few things over the next hour here. Thank you guys so much for joining. Hello, Brandy.
Hi, Trevor. Good to see you and anybody else out there. Excited to talk about Google's endpoint solution stack with everybody. Trevor already did the introductions. Just know that you've got a great team at D&H to cover all of your Google needs. Don't hesitate to reach out anytime. And here's a roadmap of what we will talk about today. It's almost Halloween. There's all these jokes that we can make about things being scary. And we know that device management and tickets in the queue are probably falling into the category of scary, or at least are pain points for our MSPs. So we want to talk about those pain points today and how ChromeOS, Google's proprietary operating system, addresses some of those pain points. You'll see, hopefully, and learn that we take a very different approach to device management and security than what's out there. And then after we talk about some of these challenges and how Chrome OS aims to address them, we will talk about some ways that you can dip your toe in the water. We know that adopting an operating system is a long journey, so we're trying to leave you with some easy, low-stakes ways to get started. So there we go. I want to lead off with a poll in the audience. Just want to know from you guys about how many hours per week do you spend currently on device maintenance and troubleshooting. So here's the options, and we are going to just give people a moment to think about it. Maybe in your mind, you're just tallying up the hours. You know, I got these many tickets coming in. I spent this many minutes on this issue, and just think about it. It doesn't have to be perfect. And we'll see what people kind of fall in the category of. So Trevor, I know you do some of this fun stuff on the side. Like what do you think the average is, or what have you heard?
Well, I would say that anybody, up until including updating your own personal devices, would be lying if it was less than an hour a week, right? But I think that there's certainly a fair amount depending on the type of platform that you're doing, and especially things that maybe are more kind of in the legacy operating system world. We know that takes some serious time, and then on top of that, you've got potential things that you have to catch, like drivers and whatnot. So I would say it'd be sitting somewhere in the middle, maybe closer to the other end of the stack. I like the spooky theme. I don't know why I don't have more craziness behind me, but if we're keeping that spooky theme going, I think the scariest thing that might have happened this Halloween is the serious situation that's happening with end of support.
Yeah, that was a big moment for our friends, our MSP friends. And that's probably top of mind for people ongoing for at least the next few quarters. So it looks like about 67, 2/3 of you say 1 to 5 hours, which is not bad at all. That's actually really good to understand and to know. So I would say kind of the first thing we want to talk about is when it comes to the hours per week spent on device management and troubleshooting, what's been happening in the past few years, and you felt it too, being right there at the front lines, is you're facing an inflection point where you need to automate as much of your basic work as possible so that you can focus on projects that differentiate yourself with your customers. So, break fix is just table stakes at this point. We want to make sure that we can have device management and troubleshooting as simple, as automated as possible, so that you can go pursue those projects that maybe have been on the back burner that you want to talk to your customer about, but you just haven't been able to find the time for it. And so what we have learned is that it's a lot of our IT customers will spend up to almost 50% of their time doing basic support. So I think in terms of the poll, at least, the audience here seems to really have gotten a good footing on making sure that they can troubleshoot and provide support in as quick and simple a way as possible. The reality is that when you look at a bigger part of the population, a lot of that time per week is spent on endpoint security management and deployment, which then, if you think about it, leaves very little time for other things. So what we want to highlight is that ChromeOS aims to reduce the amount of time that an IT shop spends on device deployment and management. Because when you have lower costs per device for support, fewer help desk tickets, and faster times to resolution, these all translate to more margin in your service contracts, and they also give you time back to pursue that next revenue generating project. Or, with the time back, just think about what you can do. Maybe it is other projects. Maybe you can take a break. No one said you have to fill your time with work. But either way, we are aiming to lower the time spent, the cost per device that you deploy from a management perspective. And take a look at this anonymized statistic from a customer of ours. This is a customer that has a hybrid ChromeOS and Windows environment. And after switching half of their devices to ChromeOS, they realized a pretty dramatic decline in support tickets filed on those Chrome devices. It's a trend, right? Quarter after quarter for them, ChromeOS accounted for about, on average, up to 12% of their total ticketing volume. This is an actual story for one of our customers. It's huge. It frees up your resources to, again, focus on the projects to do more with your customer, reduce on-site visits, still provide that same level of superior service. I remember speaking to an MSP based out of Salt Lake City a while back, and he's like a 5-person shop. But what really helped them was deploying ChromeOS to their clients that had distributed sites. And they loved it because ChromeOS was so much faster to deploy, which meant that they were able to get more devices out to more sites more quickly. And then after the deployment, they also spent less time managing ChromeOS, but they've kept the same SLA, same service contract with that customer, and have been able to hold their prices steady. So if the service contract is at the same price, but the labor hours have been reduced, that MSP is able to realize more margin on that engagement with the customer. Okay, so that's a little bit about the benefits on device management with Chrome. I'm curious now, switching our focus to talk about security a little bit, another polling question for folks. How many tools dedicated to cybersecurity do you have in your stack today? And here are some of the options. So we'll give folks, again, a few moments to think about it and give us their feedback. Trevor, what do you think? Where will we land?
Ooh, well, I would hope that we'd be closer to that 1 to 5 because I don't know what 11 plus would look like. But at the same time, when it comes to managing all of those, as long as they're in a pretty consistent place, that's great. It's that's the if this was bowls of candy, I would go for the 11 plus for sure, 100%. But I don't know if that's how we're going to land one way or the other. And I want to take a quick second too and say thank you guys again for all your participation and for feedback. I know I've been on quite a few of these before and several with Google. It's always awesome to see the engagement and involvement from our partners. So thank you guys for taking the time. And look at that, I killed enough time. We're in the 1 to 5. All right, maybe I'm 2 for 2. I don't know if I guessed the last one or not. I just sort of kind of said words until the screen filled up, but 1 to 5 felt about right. So okay.
Yeah, this one's got a consensus for sure. I think that again, what if I had to wrap my mind around what an MSP would care about? It's simplification, and so the fact that it seems 1 to 5 is a pretty manageable number. So MSPs in this audience, what that tells me, have really done their homework on which cybersecurity tools work best for them. And they are constantly trying to get to a point where they can simplify their stack more. And at the same time, when I go to shows, I see so many cybersecurity vendors. And so that tells me there's just so many different tools to learn about. And you honestly have to try all these different tools to see what works for you, to really get past what vendors are marketing or framing, and really see, well, how is this going to fit into my customer's compute stack? How is it going to work for me? So there's all these criteria to consider, and there's a considerable amount of time spent trying to figure out that cybersecurity landscape. So with that being said, we also did a little bit of homework on our own and found that up to 71% of an MSP's time is spent just on security. And I guess maybe then you start to move towards becoming an MSSP, which is a very important specialty, obviously. And at the same time, I want to contrast that 71% with the fact that cybersecurity attacks have increased actually among SMB customers. So the takeaway is MSPs are spending a considerable amount of time just on securing the perimeter, but the proliferation of cyber attacks keeps on increasing. And so a few things to know about ChromeOS when it comes to security is that the operating system has multiple layers of security built in. So some of those security highlights include sandboxing, which means isolating individual apps from one another so that if there is a malicious injection of one app, it doesn't spill over to the rest of the app stack. We have features like verified boot, which upon the restart of a Chrome device, Google will always check to make sure that that firmware has not been tampered with. So it runs through a series of checks to make sure that the Google signature is matching. We have a read-only operating system, which means that executables cannot run on ChromeOS, which in the past have tended to be an attack vector for bad actors. No executables can run on ChromeOS. And of course, all of our hardware is encrypted. So just want to highlight a few of those examples of how the operating system is providing some of these security features out of the box. And then also, the updates are automatic, meaning that every 8 weeks when we release a new version of ChromeOS, the device will automatically get those updates and have the latest, most secure version of the OS.
I'll throw something out there quick and say I first learned what a TPM module was because of Chromebooks over a decade ago. We'll say that again. TPMs were on Chromebooks over a decade ago, and that has been a staple on the more cost-effective education devices or the more enterprise-grade Chromebook Plus systems. That has not changed. That has not wavered. The dual OS boot has not wavered. That's been the formula the entire time. And I think that's why they can make these kind of statements and have them accurate as far as the zero amount in that. So now I'll be quiet again. I get excited about this part.
Thanks for chiming in. And I feel like I've said this statistic so many times that I wouldn't be surprised if somebody in the audience was like, we've heard this already, but it really is remarkable. Like 0 reported ransomware attacks ever on a ChromeOS device. And like Trevor said, we've been in business for over a decade and are so established in education. You probably know students who have a Chromebook. With so many devices distributed, we still can claim that we've had 0 successful ransomware attacks on a ChromeOS device. And then also just to add on to that, we experience an average of 24% fewer security attack attempts to begin with. So the takeaway here is that security on ChromeOS is a fundamentally different model, but it's worth taking a closer look at if security is a top priority for either yourself or your customer, and you're also just interested in seeing, where else can I consolidate my security tool stack so that I have less to manage and less to cover. Okay, so moving on now a little bit to talk about Google's AI, right? We know the AI PCs have been floating out there. They can be costly, and it's questionable. Like, does the average customer need to pay into those price points to get the things they need to do? Undeniably, people are doing more and more with AI, adopting it into their workflows. But as they're doing that, they're still trying to figure out, where can AI be of help to me? They want the experience to be smooth and integrated and fast. And they want the AI assistants to be helpful, to really integrate into how they do things day to day instead of something that they have to go really like twist themselves around to figure out how it works, right? And then on the other side, the buyers, they obviously want to be smart about their technology purchases. And so, considering the experience of the end user and of the buying team, the right device, we think, needs to balance the user experience with affordability. So with that being said, I just want to share a little bit about Google's principles when it comes to AI on ChromeOS. The first thing is that it needs to be helpful. When we look at marketing around AI, there's a lot of sleek, glamorous features being shown, but yet we shouldn't discount the kind of grunt work that AI can do behind the scenes for us. So think, if you're a knowledge worker and you are, collaborating in your productivity suite with your coworkers, you're joining video calls, AI has the opportunity to really fine tune those tasks for you so that it can suggest an email draft. It can automatically tune your video conferencing so that your sound and your video are optimized. And it can help you automate repetitive tasks. And these are the kind of background things that AI should be doing to help make your experience a little bit smoother. And so when we develop AI features on ChromeOS, we really care about the AI being helpful. And the second thing is we think that AI should be infused into your experience and not just, live in a sidebar somewhere. Just stepping back from ChromeOS, Google's obviously a huge company. We have 9 products with over 1 billion customers and 16 products that have over 500 million customers. So with those really large, customer sizes, we're always thinking about how can we infuse AI into those products that will be seamless and already be integrated with the ways that people use our services. And we're bringing all of those experiences to ChromeOS. ChromeOS will be the platform where we develop all of our AI features and make them available to our users. And then the last thing is, we leverage a hybrid model of AI compute, both natively on the device as well as in the cloud. And we do that because it really depends on what the user is trying to do, and whether that's better served running on the device or in the cloud. So we have a hybrid model here, and that's important because if everything is run, if all the AI flows are run directly on the device, it requires more processing power, more NPUs. You need a really powerfully spec'd device. And that's how you start to see those AI PC costs run in the 1000s and above. We can do some of that same stuff on a Chrome device that is half MSRP. So for us, running AI efficiently is very important because it fits into our belief that AI-powered devices should be affordable. And then just to say a little bit about Gemini, which is Google's flagship AI model. We launched Gemini in 2023. It was built from the ground up to be multimodal, meaning it understands and can combine different types of inputs, right? Text, code, audio, video, images. Some of the developments recently around image generation and video generation are really quite remarkable, all powered by Gemini. And we consistently rank at the top when it comes to multimodality, incredibly flexible, running efficiently on everything from data centers to mobile devices, and of course, Chrome devices. And like I said before, ChromeOS will be the platform where we continue to deliver these AI experiences. I want to call out Chromebook Plus. We've had Chromebook Plus as a category for a while now, but it's worth noting that this is our premium tier of devices. So for those of you who have education accounts, you're probably used to selling lower end student devices. Well, Chromebook Plus is a completely different category. You'll see that there's a minimum spec of i5 and beyond, more processing power, more RAM, more storage. And it's all because we are now, trying to make sure that we can serve a business audience, a teacher audience, and it's also going to have enough horsepower to run Gemini.
Brandy, I had to fact check myself for a quick minute. It's what I love about Google Photos, because you can just kind of go, Chromebook Plus, when was the first time I touched that and found some images from October of 2023. So that was the first run of this. And those kind of features were available at that hardware at that time. We know how fast AI is moving and all of this is getting to this point. I feel like I need to go back now and work with some of those machines, do some of the initial work that I had done way back in fall of 2023 and see what that experience looks like now. I have to believe it's going to be even that much faster than it previously was, but it was already very impressive.
Yeah, it seemed like an eon ago when we released Chromebook Plus, but the good news is, our hardware partners have continued to go along the ride with us, and we have had constant hardware refreshes and more options for customers, which is great. Okay, Connor asked a question which I think it is nicely matched up after I talk through this slide that we'll make sure we get to. The last thing I'll say about AI, about Gemini, is you can think about, if you ever do get your hands on a Chromebook, which we hope you do, just so that you can try it out for yourself, you'll see the AI broken out into 3 broad categories. The first one is AI features that help you be more productive. And so an example of that, I don't want to give like the full running list of features because there's so many, but little things like when you first sign into your Chromebook, it knows exactly where you left off. You don't have to reopen a single tab or window. It asks you, hey, this is where you left off last time. It kind of like froze that image and it says, do you want to continue? You say yes, and it loads everything back up for you. Help me collaborate. This is it is speaking to our, workspace product, but it also exists on the Chrome device. Like I was mentioning before, that automatic optimization of your video conferencing so that you never have to fiddle around with the settings. Am I on mute? Can you guys hear me? Can you guys see me? The Chrome device will tweak all of those settings automatically for you in the background. And then we love our IT customers. Shout out to IT. You guys, you do so much of the background work to make sure that your devices are up and running, that the infrastructure is up and running. We also have infused AI into the management experience. So some of the things that we've done is we allow you to, use natural language processing. So if you're in the console, hey, find me a policy that will do X, Y, or Z. We can surface those recommendations for you. We can also just automatically surface like, hey, we think that you should consider applying, XYZ policies to this OU, and not have you start from a blank slate, but give you some of those recommendations so that you can start to set up and make sure the right policies are in place. So that's all speaking to that native Google experience. And then I know Connor's question is, we know there's a lot of customers that are O365 based. And the good news is that in recent years, we've done a lot of optimization work with O365 customers. And we'll make sure we leave a resource if we didn't already. But recently, we've integrated with OneDrive to make sure files can be accessed on Chrome devices. You can use your Microsoft identity provider to log into Chromebooks. And then I will say, with regards, if you have a customer that's using virtualization, we have also a very seamless virtualization experience on Chrome devices as well. I know that's outside of kind of like the Microsoft purview, but we absolutely have customers that have Microsoft as their main identity provider or as their primary productivity suite, and have had a great experience on ChromeOS. So that's also kind of a myth busting is, hey, if I have an O365 customer, I can't use Chromebooks. Users can absolutely sign in, access all of their O365 apps. And I'm trying to think about some of the other like really solid features that have come out, but there was a recent blog post Google released. And if you just Google ChromeOS O365, you'll see a blog post we detailed about some of those integrations that we made.
Yeah, Connor, I think I'll drop you a quick line. Maybe we can chat offline about this a little bit further to help come up with a path for you to potentially start to demo this for your customers and get that initial piece of this satisfied in terms of just the idea of, okay, does this work? I feel like, okay, if I wanted to be where we were 10 years ago to now, I think the questions maybe more 10 years ago was, does my mouse work with this Chromebook? And I love that sort of approach now is almost just, does my Office account or does my Microsoft environment work on this Chromebook? And the answer 10 years ago and the answer now is 1,000% yes. Not only can you use your Microsoft account as an SSO or single sign-on through the admin console, but while we're still up on this side, just to the far right, the lock screen example, the help me manage devices. Imagine being able to go into an admin console. You're an MSP, you're very familiar with Microsoft Stack. Chrome is still fairly new to you. The Chrome admin console isn't something you've seen a ton of. You or possibly your customer, you're looking at doing this as a demo. Imagine being able to have a conversation with this to help it, ask it to help you learn how to potentially set these things up, and then have it walk you through how to engage with single sign-on for your Microsoft, employees that can then access that. And the last thing I'll say about this, and that's a piece where we'll get more into virtualization in a bit, but the thing that I think of that I know I've done personally off and on over the last half a decade or so here, even as a D&H employee, is remote access in Windows environment. So RDP, I know, changed to officially, I think they're calling it the Windows app now, but the bottom line is that same principles apply. You're using a IT-controlled, secure Microsoft account within your even more, additionally secure Chrome environment to create that connection, possibly using a 2FA or something to establish that. But once you're there, that kind of experience, since you are virtualizing into another device, is absolutely flawless. It was great 5 years ago. It's even better now. And those are all the things I can speak to from firsthand experience with how all of this sort of plays well together now.
Yeah. Trevor, you just made me think, because, I talk to partners whenever I get a chance to, whether it's at D&H Thread or at industry shows, and this is nobody's fault. I do find that partners have a conception of Chromebooks from, let's say, 5 years ago. This is how we were 5 years ago. You guys didn't have this, you didn't have that. Or, it's like, oh, it's an education device. And I do not fault anybody for having those lines of thinking, because we have done very well in education. Students love Chromebooks. We are in a place where we are, always trying to continue to integrate into the business stack. Take a look at Chromebooks now. Like, I don't know how much of the audience have actually looked at or picked up a Chromebook Plus device lately, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say the experience is different than what you last experienced. So we really encourage you to try it out for yourself. And and I want to say that because, the default thinking might be like, I've got a new project, I need to deploy computers, and it's got to be Windows. And we just want to, encourage our MSPs to take a step back and think, for that next project, the users are mostly web-based. They need something lightweight. They need something shareable. And I don't want to have to worry about securing those devices all too much. Can they work with a Chrome device? And then you get to potentially reap the benefits of what we discussed earlier around just simpler management and built-in security. So that's my own little bit, and I think it actually segues quite nicely into just this visual that we built, very high level. But I think the takeaway here is, as an MSP, you can offer your customer a powerful experience while making it simpler to manage and secure. So from D&H's SaaS configurator, you have two similarly spec'd devices that just on the hardware alone have a different price point. On the management licensing have a different price point. And cost savings for the MSP is great. The real win is the time savings, again, associated with the management. I've talked to MSPs before about how they troubleshoot Chrome devices, and the most dramatic step that they take is to power wash it. If everything else fails, they just hit that nuclear button, right? Because when you power wash, then you're resetting that device, blowing away all of those settings. And still, it's low risk to do that because most of the work is in the web. The apps reinstall themselves automatically because of the policies that were applied. And then the MSP saves themselves from hours of trying to analyze the root cause of what went wrong with that device. So I want to point out here that ChromeOS can translate to real hard cost savings for an MSP.
And to echo that, Brandy, the big thing when you're at that nuclear button is that it might be nuclear, but the grass is going to grow back pretty fast after that thing hits, because especially, maybe I should be clear, if you're doing the pieces in the stack that we're talking about here, the very next and very important piece of this, which is the actual device management, the ChromeOS management license, that gives an admin the ability to keep that device locked and secured. And without getting too far ahead of ourselves as far as anything else we wanted to cover today, the biggest thing I'd like to just reinforce for you all is to present this as a what if you could deploy almost 2 Chrome devices for every single previous legacy type solution into an environment for a customer, to potentially give them a spare pool, so that if something does happen, I mean, physical damage aside, but if something does happen, they have another device, maybe someone leaves there somewhere or whatever the case would be, they're able to fire up that next machine and they're off and running. Because even if you reset a managed Chromebook and do the nuclear button, the one thing that Chrome has done, as I mentioned before, that has been their staple for a decade plus now, is that TPM module and the dual OS install, to the point that as soon as it gets itself back to a state of powering on within just a few seconds, the first thing that it requires is an internet connection. And as soon as it gets that connection, it's taking its serial number, reporting back to Google, and basically saying, do I belong to anybody? And at that point, Google's saying, yes, you are part of the DNH.com or part of company XYZ or school XYZ. And it instantly puts that device right back into that management state.
You know the technical details better than I do.
I've seen a lot of things. I've touched a lot of Chrome over the years, for sure.
So how can we start to take a closer look? We know that there were a bunch of Windows 10 devices that went end of life as of a couple weeks ago. We have started to see some MSPs offer Flex as a bridge solution. So what is Flex? It allows you to take almost any old PC or Mac and install ChromeOS on that device. It's like, Frankenstein's monster reanimated, but better, because now you have an operating system that is usable. That device gets extended life. And we are seeing MSPs start to use it as a bridge solution until that customer is ready for a hardware refresh. And at the same time, then both yourself and your customer get to try out ChromeOS. So it's a very low stakes way to explore ChromeOS. So that's one thing I wanted to call out. I think the next few slides, Trevor, you feel free to run through, because these are all about D&H managed services or pro services.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brandy. And we'll come up for air for a second here and maybe just knock out a few of these questions. In no particular order, Bill, you were asking about Chrome offering integration with either M365 apps or third-party apps like Salesforce. If I wanted to pick on Salesforce specifically, I would say yes, 100%, because what the modern Chrome hardware experience is, and when I say modern, I would say even honestly within the last 3 to 5 years or so, most of the Chrome hardware is now not just Chromium, but Android as well. So you have access to both the Google Web Store and the Play Store. So it's almost a kind of, if it's not there, then it's here sort of thing. But I just did a quick search and confirmed that Salesforce is available in both flavors of that. And then what you can do on a managed device, picture this, you're in a situation where you've got maybe 5 key apps that your customer needs to have access to at any given time. That Chrome device can be set up to have those within the bottom tray as soon as they launch, so that those apps are there ready for them to use right away. And the app could either be local because it's an Android install, or it could be a web-based. But either way, the experience would be the same as far as how that would come up once you've signed in with your credentials or used O365, for example. You're off and running. So that is how powerful and how easy it is to deploy that. I think it would take less time than it did for me to just explain that, because I know I talk a lot. So I'll give Google some credit there. And Andrew asked about Google Workspace MDM for Android, blocking the use of third-party password managers. So I'll be honest, I don't do a lot in Android MDM. If I do anything from a D&H perspective, I have ChromeOS admin certs, and that's been sort of the playground that I've been in for the majority of the time. We don't have a ton of Android phones or offerings there, but I know enough to be dangerous. And I will say that if we're talking something in Samsung's line, you absolutely have like Knox and those sorts of things. But the bigger part of the question is, does managed Chromebooks have the limitation when it comes to third-party password managers? And I think we've already confirmed that no, it does not. Because of the ability to integrate within O365, for example, you can put your Microsoft Authenticator directly against some of the things you're doing in your Chrome environment and not run into any of those issues. But please, Andrew, by all means, feel free to reach out to us. It would be techsolutions@dnh.com, or find me directly, and we can dive into that at any point further and do a little sandboxing together. So that being said, let's keep rolling. Thank you guys for all the questions. Please keep them coming. It's super engaging. Love to see it. And that brings us to talk a little bit about pro services, which I'll say, everybody, the announcement just happened technically yesterday through CRN. I wasn't going to torture our media team behind the scenes and change some of these decks around, but what's now Advanced Solutions Plus is a little bit of a rebranding, but in the I think we're following Google's lead with adding the plus to it, because it's so much more than just the services side of it. We're obviously doing things like professional service, on-site install sort of thing. We're also doing a fair amount of consultative work, or in general kind of best practices that we're trying to work through as a company, as well as some of the things that we're doing to bring on, I think it's something like 30 or 40 new heads on the SME side for specific verticals that have certifications and things like cybersecurity and whatnot. So there's a lot happening under what will be now branded soon on the website as Advanced Solutions Plus. But Pro Services is part of that. And what that is, in a nutshell, if folks aren't familiar with the term white glove, that is the ability to just make sure that these devices are completely enrolled and ready to go when they arrive at your customer's door. So things that physically need to happen, like acid tagging or potentially laser engraving, that sort of thing. Those are pieces that we can handle within our DC to make sure that the experience, as great as the remote deployment is, if internet connection, or again something physically like an acid tag or an etch that needs to happen to it, those are things that can happen while it's still within our DC before it goes out the door. Just give that nice seamless experience. I will say that we've even gone as far as to entertain and have done this for certain partners where we've used custom packaging for them for other kind of experiences, which I'll get to the next slide here and kind of show. So examples of some of the etching that we're doing at scale, the ability to support up to 1,000 Chromebooks per day. And when I say Chromebooks, they're not all created equal in terms of size. We're kind of focusing on maybe like the 13, 14-inch sort of size. We have two ginormous climb into them laser etching machines, and I think about scale, and I think about where we started with that even almost 10 years ago. And yes, we had a machine that could do about 4. Now we've scaled to the point that any one of those machines can do, I think, closer to 20 at any given time, and running in tandem. That's how we get to that 1,000 per day sort of number. Pretty fantastic. And then our footprint. This DC is relatively new. We set it up a few years ago. It is, I always want to say 750,000 square feet. I feel like if we just set up a tent somewhere in the parking lot, it would get to that 750, but it's 745,000 square feet. And what's nice is about 10% of that is actually dedicated to all the configuration work that we do. So anybody on the call that's had a tour of one of our DCs before, or been at a distribution center at scale like this, to hear that 10% is dedicated to just the, I don't want to call it hurry up and wait, but there's a lot of logistics that need to happen. So there's a huge staging area for the logistics piece of this. So you, separate from the pick, pack, and ship sort of everyday life, we have a system and a process baked out through the pro services team to be able to call out those orders and stop them from shipping and bring them into that room to get the configuration done, and then staged outside of the room to be deployed. And these are some of the numbers that we're seeing. The 300,000 devices configured in 2024, which was a 20% up year over year. A lot of really big things to call out that we're really proud of. Please reach out to the pro services team or us, and we'll make sure that we get you some additional details if you're curious, or if you're local and you want to take a tour. Happy to open it up anytime. This is one little thing I wanted to call out. This is a little bit more on the education side, but it's just something that we've thought about and been passionate about for a few years. The image to the far right was taken from yours truly on site at a location a few years ago that didn't have this sort of consolidated shipping approach to it. I think we filled that dumpster 5,000 to 6,000 devices. I think we deployed over the course of a couple of days, and I feel like we filled that dumpster just about every single day. But we recycle all of the OEM packaging on-prem when it's done within our warehouse. And for that kind of more typical 13, 14-inch Chromebook, those are the things that we're able to put in that kind of cubular, Rubik's Cube, sort of very dense, but decent Rubik's Cube of 10 devices, chargers on top. And what we're realizing is that that kind of a condensing to the approach for large-scale deployments means that not only can we get more into a truck but obviously then the deployment becomes that much more seamless. We can custom brand even what's on each individual box, give you data that shows you box 1 through 900, and for that 9,000 piece deployment, for example, and where each one of them needs to go, or even delivery instructions within the the facility once they get from point A to point B. But that kind of volume also gets you dedicated drivers, which means that the turnaround time, just to address the reality that we don't have this kind of presence of the West Coast, but for those larger scale projects, most times we're in with what would be considered high value territory, which means we're talking 2 dedicated drivers that are going to go nonstop from point A to point B. And I don't road trip a lot of these myself, but I've gotten pretty good at guessing about how, or getting familiar with about how long it takes a driver to get from one section to the other. And you'd be surprised when when they're able to do nonstop, how quickly they can get from PA all the way out to Brandy's neck of the woods out in San Francisco. I will not steal your thunder. That is what I've got for you there. And then, Brandy, I'm sorry, did you want to cover a little bit of the readiness tool, or do you want me to keep rolling with it? Maybe we can tag team this one.
Yeah, let's tag team. So I'll speak to readiness tool at a high level, and then Trevor, you can talk about what D&H is offering.
Perfect.
So we partnered with a app developer called Codamite, and we have this tool that helps both customers and MSPs determine which customers are ready to adopt ChromeOS. What it does is it runs a report for you to tell you these users in your customer organization have this kind of app usage profile. It's mostly web-based, or they're using a handful of locally installed apps. We think they're ready to adopt ChromeOS. So the tool is a surgical way for you to pursue parts of your customer base that are ready to adopt ChromeOS. These are some of the features that the tool offers. And one last thing to note, which Trevor, you can talk to, is that D&H is able to provide this as a funded service on behalf of partners. Trevor, do you want to speak to it a little bit?
Happy to. And I'm going to steal your slide and go back a second and say this is how we're doing it. The section towards the middle here, the data storage and network shared folder in GCP storage. So we have an encrypted GCP cloud bucket set up currently. That's what we had worked through earlier this year with the Codamite team, with Jocelyn and Brandy and Madhavi from Google. I'll just calling some shout outs for any other Googlers that might be on this call. It was a great effort, and we're excited because it's just continuing to get better and better as they keep reiterating on the tool and the way that it's reporting. But in the end, it's a custom link that we're sending out to point at the encrypted bucket that we have set up through Google. So we don't have access to the data. You don't necessarily have access to the data. Only the end user does through a token, which they then have the ability to pull or share at their discretion, and then their reporting comes at that level. So at that point, then we can have a follow-up review. And that's what we're saying in the bullet points here, is that really we're looking at this as a secure process to review, and it says current state of devices. We provide a unique link that points specifically at that bucket, but there's obviously a download, and the download itself has the ability to deploy that either directly onto a device or into a network environment, which we can set up a quick call to demo. And then at that point, once we're at that state, I feel like this is one of those set it and forget it kind of moments. I feel like it's a Sunday rotisserie chicken thing. I don't know if that's the right analogy, but that's where my brain wants to go right now. Because we're not going to have another meeting again for, we'll say, as little as 4 days, but really 30 is probably the better use case, to let it really bake for a bit, let people on that domain do what they would normally do every single day, so that you have a very accurate report of exactly what's happening in their environment. So you can go to that customer and say, I'm not just coming to you because it's end of support and you need to do a thing, and here's the thing you can do. But I'm coming to you because it's end of support. You've maybe gotten away with some of this a little bit further. You've gotten some more miles out of some devices, and you're still kind of looking to make the right refresh decision. here's a very strategic way to look at where Chrome can fit in based around the app usage that's happening in your customer's environment. We hope we see all green, but honestly, even if we see some yellow and a little bit of red, that's nothing that potentially virtualizing those apps can't fix. But it all comes back to the conversation. If you're having them make that much of an investment in their time, we're willing to meet you there and then some, and take that along with, because we feel like there's, in most cases, any of these that go through that level generally close in as success, either in refreshing devices through ChromeOS Flex, like we mentioned earlier, or starting there and then starting to deploy devices in based on this kind of reporting.
Yeah. And so I think what the sales cycle could look like is maybe you've got a customer with Windows 10 end of life, not interested in paying that, keep the lights on kind of fee with Microsoft, curious if Chrome OS could be a fit for them. You would engage, Trevor and team. They can help you with an assessment up to a month. That's enough information, intel to collect. At the end of that 1 month, then you can take that next step. Maybe it's flexing their devices. Maybe they're ready to move on to new hardware. But this tool fits into the sales cycle nicely if you are just trying to get a little bit more information on whether Chrome OS could be a good fit for your customer. And in the meantime, in that 1 month or however long, Trevor's team is awesome at enabling our partners to make sure that they're comfortable with Google Admin Console, that they can really get hands-on and familiar with what that management experience looks like. I know we've got 9 minutes to go. A few other call outs before we wrap up is, our SKUs are in the cloud marketplace. So we're part of Advanced Solutions with regards to the management licenses, which you definitely want to attach to any hardware so you've got purview over them. They're available in the cloud marketplace. It's great. There's flexible billing options. You can automatically renew your customer, and you can also take action on that customer. So if you need to procure, take a look at the cloud marketplace. And just having the latest Chromebook Plus models up here for you all to take a look at. D&H is great at stocking hardware. We also, through Google, have a program where if you have an opportunity, we can ship a device out to you or your customer, have them get hands-on, have you get hands-on and try it out for yourself. It's a free program. And I think we will wrap up by just summarizing some of these next steps that you can take. If you are motivated from what you hear and are curious about, one, trying Chrome OS for yourself, go get that download of Flex. I know that's kind of a long URL, but if you just Google Chrome OS Flex, you're going to be taken to a page where you can download that image onto an old PC and try that Flex experience for yourself. If you want to try management, trials are available either for yourself or your customer. Again, kind of a long URL, but you can just Google Chrome OS management trial to get started. And then just take a look at what D&H has to offer. So many good options when it comes to hardware, licensing, services. We've got a sales specialist named Chris who's ready to help you out. And you can reach out to googlesales@dnh.com to follow up on anything that you heard on this webinar today. That is a wrap for both myself and Trevor. We just have one pretty straightforward question I don't think we got to. Are we recording this presentation and will it be shared? I think someone from D&H may need to answer that.
Oh, yes, absolutely, we will. And it should be posted on the D&H page where we have a fair amount of these videos as well. I'm going to say that I know I mentioned before, we've got some rebranding things that are happening. So I don't want to give you the exact link yet or just say, hey, search for Advanced Solutions. But I'm fairly confident it'll either come up under Tech Solutions or under kind of our general video content feed. I'm sure there'll be a LinkedIn post that we'll do as well about it. But If you get stuck anywhere trying to find it, please just reach out to me, because that'll be a reminder for me to find it as well, because it should be soon. Our team is fantastic about getting this stuff rolled out. Let me see here. Ooh, Andrew and again asked, did Google add the Android marketplace to ChromeOS Flex? I know I was missing it in the beginning. So Andrew, I think I understand the question. I think it's more about the Android I really think it depends on the hardware. So in other words, if you're working with an x86 from, let's say, maybe 15 years ago, like I literally put this on a red Toshiba because I liked the D&H red that it had, but it was almost at the edge of not being able to support it because of how old it was. I would not believe that experience would have been fantastic for things like Android, but it would have been great for general use on just web-based things. So I feel like it's a case-by-case basis, but I could be wrong on that. And I like to be able to say that every once in a while. We'll check it out.
I don't think what you're saying is wrong. So that's true around hardware. I will also add that I don't think Android is officially supported on Flex. However, don't rule out Flex as an option because it will depend on your customer's specific app needs. So maybe the web app is a perfectly suitable alternative. We didn't get into virtualization in this call, but we in D&H also have a virtualization option that is very cost-friendly that we will share more about in future sessions that may fill that app gap for you. So stay tuned for that.
Awesome. I feel like we should throw a contest together, Brandy. Now that this is recorded, I'm not putting you on the spot or anything, I promise. But I feel like we need our partners to come forward with like a show me your craziest Flex setup. Flex on your Flex. Show me this, and maybe put something together around that. Maybe there's at least a Google Pillow and some DoorDashes or something in for that. But really, like, it's so effortless to deploy this, guys. Like you're just throwing it onto a thumb drive, and if that system is not in use right now, what's the harm? Give it a shot, see what loading this experience is like. And, the worst thing that happens is the best thing that happens. You get some additional mileage out of that device. And then if it's the end users, they get to experience what the preview of this might be like in their space that could potentially tiptoe them into using more dedicated Chrome devices.
I've seen some pretty crazy setups of Flex with some very purpose-built devices from like what I would assume are hospitals or I don't know, some crazy setups. If you send your Flex setup to Trevor, we'll send you a Chrome squishy pillow like the one he has in the background.
There you go. You've got it. It's on the recording. So let's see. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say that. Really quickly, we do have an ASUS configurator. Nothing too crazy because it's for NUC-based devices specifically, which really just have a few components. It's memory, storage, operating system. But one of the options that you can choose is ChromeOS Flex. So you could potentially deploy a bare bones machine with Flex on it. The operating system itself would be at no cost. It would just be the management license, and that would be a great kiosk device or a perfect digital signage player if you were looking for something very specific.
All right, folks, that's a wrap from us. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we hope you learned something new.
Thank you all.
Take care.